I'm Craig Kenneth, a relationship coach and a psychotherapist. Every relationship is different and every breakup is different. Work with me and you'll get professional help on your situation. And if you're in no contact, focused on personal growth, my workbook series, The Knowledge, will help you make changes like you've never made before. Available now at AskCraig.net. Hi there, I'm Coach Craig Kenneth.
And I'm Coach Victoria.
And in this video, we're going to be talking to you about what your ex is really thinking about in no contact.
Ooh, our crystal ball is at work. Before we get into it, I did want to say that Craig and I are available for coaching sessions. So if you would like to talk about your situation one-on-one with us, you can head to the website and book from there.
Yeah, we always have new people discovering our channel. And so it's good to cover topics like this because, people are just going through a breakup. They find our channel and they want to know stuff like this because that's one of the biggest things we think about and wonder about is like, what our ex is thinking about? What are they feeling? What are they doing? Are they missing me? Are they gonna come back? Will they consider coming back? Or are they feeling like they're definitely not gonna come back? And we just kind of get obsessive on knowing that information. And that's normal because, we get so overwhelmed by the anxiety, that separation anxiety. Margaret used to say, all anxiety
is separation anxiety.
Yep. And so we're so overwhelmed with it that we're in this state of panic. And everything inside of us is just focused on getting them back. And so we want to know, what are they thinking about? Are they thinking they might come back? Are they thinking about me? Do they miss me? And so we understand no contact is really hard. And you are obsessing about your ex. And I know because I've been there. That's part of the reason that I do this is because I wanted to help people understand this. I went through it and I really struggled with these things. And, as I looked at trauma with Margaret and understanding childhood stuff, I realized that my childhood really had a huge impact on why I was struggling so much in my breakups. So you're wondering, what are they thinking? What are they feeling? What are they going to do? Are they seeing other people? Are they interested in other people?
We just want any information possible.
Yeah. And some people are worried, have they forgotten about you? Right? And, if you're thinking that somebody's forgotten about you, that is a real attachment wound right there. Right? And you got to understand that a lot of that relates to feeling abandoned in the crib.
And that fear of annihilation, that you cease to exist when this person doesn't think of you. Now we know if we're cognitively thinking about it with our brains, we don't think of it in that way, but to our bodies and our primal sense, we feel that. We want to be remembered. We want to be connected with the people that we love and care about. That gives us that sense of safety and control in the world.
Yeah. And so, but that's why we can get so obsessed with our ex because it feels tied to life and death. If they don't come back, we're going to die without them. And that's because of our attachment to our caregivers, where if they didn't come back to take care of us, we would have died without them. So we're going to talk about some of the points that we see here. Now, every situation is different and every breakup is different. I hear new things every single day.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
And that's why it's great to revisit a topic like this because now we have, more knowledge to build on, which is really interesting.
Yep.
Different stories, different things that we can chime in on.
But today we're going to see some of the patterns and some of the things that we hear from exes or things that come up in success stories and stuff like that.
So a lot of this depends on many different things in the relationship. Quality of the relationship, the length of it, the depth of it. This really makes a difference in your ex's experience during no contact, how attached they were, and also their level of anxiety.
Yeah, and that's a big point because think about it. Somebody that you were, engaged to and you were going to marry and that you've been living with for years, that's different than somebody that you just met 4 months ago, okay? So, the quality, the time, and some of those things are coming out in just that little example. But you have to understand that that's why we're always saying that things are so different, that it's not like a one-size-fits-all thing in many cases.
Right, and we were totally kidding about the crystal ball. We don't have any surefire way of knowing exactly what your ex is thinking. I'm hoping that you know that in watching this
We
video.
ordered one from Amazon, but it's still in the mail. It got lost in delivery.
We hope you know that. This is just from what we hear in speaking with exes and our experience with talking with people, trends and patterns that we see.
Yep.
So the very first thing that many exes experience is a thing called separation elation. If you haven't heard this term before, it's basically that relief that you feel from finally getting that distance and space from someone that you needed. Now, for them, it probably took a lot of courage for them to enact the breakup. This is a decision that for most people is one that they think about for a while, and for them to muster up that courage, finally tell you, go through with that decision, can feel like an accomplishment. So you feel like, oof, I've finally done this thing that's been weighing heavy on me for a very long time. For some people, it's harder than they expected it to be. For others, it's easier. But that feeling of, okay, now I'm free from this. I'm able to have some space to be independent, to rearrange my life a bit in the way that I wanted to or imagined to. That can be something that feels good. And I know that's hard for you to hear on your end because you're heartbroken. You want to connect. You can't believe that they ended this relationship.
It feels personal.
But as we go on, we're going to tell you why this is not the worst thing in the world. You want them to be able to experience that space, for them to see what it's like without you.
Yeah. And as hard as it is to hear that, that's a good point. They need to see what life is like without you, because that is a big part of regret, is an actual consequence, right? If you keep reaching out to them and there's no consequence, what's to regret?
Exactly.
They haven't lost anything.
And with all feelings, there's a rise and fall. There's an intensity of the feeling, and then over time, it decreases in intensity until you reach that baseline again. And so it's going to take some time for them to get adjusted to their feelings after a breakup. For them, it's also emotional, just in a completely different way. And they will become more and more aware of the negatives of your absence once time has passed. So in the beginning, in that elation stage, they're seeing all the positive things about your absence. Saying, man, I have a bunch more time on my hand. I'm able to do this thing and that thing without hearing my partner complain. I can do what I want. I have full control of my life. I'm the captain of my own ship. They start feeling this independence. But over time, then they start to realize, man, there were some benefits that I got from that relationship that I'm now not experiencing. That takes some time.
Especially the avoidant, because the avoidant has likely been feeling some pressure to stay in that relationship for a while, and so they really have that big sigh of relief, whereas the anxious person loves connection and they want connection, so there's not as much of a relief. The relief tends to be that they've been neglected for so long they couldn't take it anymore, and so they're kind of relieved that they don't have to keep feeling that pain. That's just an example right there. But, you have to stop reaching out. That's key here, okay? I saw a comment just a few hours ago that I was in no contact for 5 weeks, but I would reach out to them every week. I'm not kidding. That was literally just a few hours ago I saw that comment. I'm like, that's not no contact. Okay? How is you're no contact for 5 weeks, but you reached out once a week, every week? Okay? So you gotta stop reaching out. Okay? When you stop reaching out, that is when your ex sees a change in your behavior. And that is a big difference within them, that they're seeing that you're no longer chasing them, you're no longer trying to convince them, and they probably expected you to keep doing it for a while. And so when you finally stop, it's like, wait a minute, what happened? They're really gone? They're really going to leave me alone now? And that's a weird feeling. Now it's kind of like a calm before a storm. You're like, it's uncomfortable. They don't know what to think anymore. But they're also going to start to wonder what you're doing and start to be a lot more curious about you. And so many of you guys are really, really bad on Instagram. You're posting 25 stories a day about this is what I'm doing with my life, and exes do this, and narcissist that, and breakup song this, and stop doing it. I tell you guys, less is more. You want them to wonder. You want them to have that absence. But you keep posting and they're not going to have it. So you need that to happen for separation anxiety to rise and their interest to go up.
Exactly. And anger that's left over after that breakup, it takes time for it to subside. We were talking about that rise and fall of emotions. Anger is a very common emotion during a breakup. We're angry at our ex for maybe mistakes that have happened in the relationship. Maybe we're angry at our ex because of that pressure that we might have felt. So it takes time for anger to subside and for you to get back to a calm and balanced place again. And for you to look at a situation differently. I'm sure all of you can recall an event in your life that you were furious about, that now you look back on in a completely different lens. Maybe you even laugh and joke about it now. So time really does give us perspective, and you have to allow that time and space for your ex to be able to have a different perspective. If you're constantly bringing up the issues of the relationship to them unwillingly, they're just participants in hearing your TED Talk and your speech about what went wrong in the relationship, that's not going to give them a different perspective of the situation. Space and time will.
Yeah, and I know one of the things that's really hard for you is that you assume that just because your ex is feeling one way now, that they're always going to feel that way. And it really feels like that. You think that because they're saying these things now, it'll always be like that, but that is not the case. Feelings change, like I've been saying for years. Feelings change like the clouds that move across the sky.
So wholesome.
Yeah, I mean, it's true. It's a fluid thing, and they change depending upon your mood. You might be happy and sad and angry and scared all in one day, all in 5 minutes, right? So just because you're upset, your ex was upset at the time of the breakup, doesn't mean they're going to stay that way.
Right. And things like trauma, anxiety, depression, these can cause our mind to act in very rigid ways where we start to think that the present moment is permanent. We have this idea of permanence of whatever emotions come up. So the more you're able to work through those emotions, the more you're able to accept that reality that feelings change. And it's almost used as a reassurance tool. We say that a lot, feelings change, and thinking about that can be something that is comforting for you.
Yeah, it is.
Now, a lot of your ex's emotions can shift over time. As we're talking about this change, some of the shifts that we personally see is that shift from anger during the breakup, where an ex is mean, nasty, cold, distant towards you, to a place where they're very self-reflective. A place where they're a lot more emotionally malleable, they're more accepting and willing to hear feedback from others. So that's a big shift that we see. Another one is from guilt for breaking your heart. A lot of exes feel super guilty. They just don't want to deal with it or think about it or think about the ways that they've hurt you in this breakup, to then curiosity about how you're handling it.
Yeah.
Because in that guilt, they've made the assumption that you're handling it terribly. So if you get to a place where you're able to say, okay, actually, I am handling this breakup okay, or that's at least all that they see, then that curiosity builds up. Well, how are they really doing with this? Did this really affect them in the ways that I thought it would have?
And ultimately, are they going to move on?
Right.
And they will actually start to fear losing you. The anxiety builds up. This is what I've been talking about for such a long time, guys. And it's so true. We see it all the time. And what do? They make a bid to connect. But they don't usually say, I miss you. What do? An indirect, direct approach. I've been teaching you guys about this for years because I kept seeing it happen even when I first started coaching. I miss the cat. Have you seen these sneakers? Have you found that envelope that I needed? Looking for excuses, things that are insignificant. Now, they're usually disguised well. Okay, they're not going to leave you, it's not going to feel like obvious. These things are very subtle, and that's why they're so confusing. But they're looking for an excuse to connect with you because they miss you and they want to feel that connection again on some level.
Exactly. And another big shift that you see is that shift from apathy, where it seems like they don't care about this relationship at all, to one of a bit more energy. So you might see an ex being very depressed, very, not very motivated in life, or maybe it just seems like they don't care and they're moved on, thriving, doing their own thing, to now they are actually putting some little molecule of energy in this, whether that is an indirect direct, whether that is something else, maybe a more direct reach out for some of you. So that is something that you do see. And with this indirect direct, you can get a little bit more insight into your ex's process. This is why we talk about no contact so much, because if you're constantly reaching out trying to find out, what are you thinking? What is this like for you? How are you feeling now? Have you thought about it? Have you thought about what I asked? Then it doesn't really give them that time to process. You might not get a clear and genuine answer anyways. So waiting for them to reach out in any way, whether that be indirect, direct, whether that escalates into something more, which sometimes it does, it usually does. That's where you get more of a genuine response.
As long as you don't come on too strong, though. I gotta say that, because if you come on too strong, they're not gonna open up. That's so key.
Exactly. Sometimes it is interesting, though, when you allow somebody that space to say whatever it is that they want to say without pressuring them or forcing them, you will be surprised with what people tell you.
Yes. This is a different video right here. But it's so true. But, we're talking about what your ex is going through. But if you keep your mouth closed and listen more than you start talking, and this is why I'm telling you guys, you don't want to be on those 45-minute calls. It's like a sinking ship.
Yeah.
Short calls. Your goal is to get them in person. But they will start to open up and tell you a lot, even on those first couple of dates, as long as you're quietly listening and not trying to force your agenda. But your ex is going to go through a lot of different thoughts and feelings. Can we fix this? Can the relationship be repaired? I do miss them. I do love them. These are the reasons why we can't work it out. Then these are the reasons that we could. And so they're going to go through all of these things kind of like a carousel, just spinning around and around in a fog where they're not quite sure either. They're not as adamant as you think they are, is the point. And we see it all the time. We see the process all the time. But you have to be patient. Don't break no contact. Do the work in no contact. Don't break it. Because when you break it, your ex isn't going to do these things because they haven't had that time for it to happen at their speed.
Right.
You want them to do these things at their speed, not your speed.
And when they are doing it at their speed, they're a lot more likely to be honest with you about their own process. Sometimes you'll hear from exes, they'll say things like, I've thought about you this entire time, or this is what it was like for me during the breakup. So you have to be in that place where you are receptive, where you are ready to listen. I like what you said, close your mouth and listen.
Yeah.
Very straight to the point. Craig doesn't mince his words here.
Listen, because I want to see you guys in a position to be successful, and so many people will not reach out, and they'll get to a place where they're actually handling no contact well. Then their ex comes back, they haven't done the work,
Just word
and
vomit.
6 months of no contact is gone in a 4-hour call or a 45-minute call even. And I can't tell you how many people that will send emails to me like that. And, people that, especially those that haven't done coaching, because, I'm tough, because I want to see you successful. And it's not easy to have that emotional self-control when you're in front of your ex again. Believe me, I know it takes a lot of hard work.
It's very tough.
You have to have more discipline than you've ever had, because everything inside you wants to repair it, but you really want it to come from them. And if you're still anxious and you haven't processed and dealt with things, you're going to spill your guts instead of them spilling their guts.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. You really want to be able to give them that space to open up however they feel and create that safety in that environment.
All right. So hopefully this one's been helpful to you. Of course, if you want to get our help personally, you can do that on my website, askcraig.net. I do email coaching and I do Skype. Coach Victoria is also available for Skype coaching.
I'm here whenever you'd like to chat.
Just click on her name on the top of the website to schedule with her. But that's it for this video. I'm Coach Craig Kenneth.
And I'm Coach Victoria.
And we will talk with you soon.